For our next presentation, it's my pleasure to introduce Dan Rose, the chairman of Rose Associates, a leading New York-based real estate organization. Dan is probably the most generous man that I know. He is founder of the highly acclaimed Harlem Education Activities Fund, whose inner-city students are flowing into the nation's leading colleges and universities. Yes. It would take me all night to describe in detail the many lives and organizations that have been touched and enriched by Dan Rose. CED, for its part, has been pleased to have Dan as a leader in our early childhood work. And I remember, Dan, when we did an event in Memphis, Tennessee, you brought the house down. It was a standing ovation. It was truly inspiring. So suffice it to say that we are honored to have Dan as a loyal trustee and as a former trustee leadership honoree. Dan, I invite you to the podium.
Thank you. Friends, as we've heard, CED has several challenges. One of them, an important one, is how can we clone Bruce McClary? Now, bright, knowledgeable, experienced, energetic, creative, imaginative, decent people with a strong pro bono bent are hard to find. Thank heaven we found Bruce McClary. Now, this good man, after a formidable career at Princeton, at Cambridge, in the Treasury, in the Federal Reserve, he was picked in due course to be the youngest chairman ever, the youngest leader of a Federal Reserve regional bank, when he went to Minneapolis, where he achieved a remarkable record. Now, the community of Minneapolis loved and were so proud of the McLaurys. The McClarys loved and were so proud of Minneapolis, yet there is no validity to the rumor that a young McClary son went to his father with the plaintive query, "Daddy, is it true that in the Bible there are many mentions of St. Paul, but not one of Minneapolis?" But the Minneapolis types do love the family and the man. After his wonderfully productive career at Minneapolis, he was in due course chosen by Robert Rosa, as I recall, who led the committee, to lead the nation's foremost think tank, which he brought to even newer heights. Here, the Brookings Institution, as we know it today, is in no small part due to the ministrations of Bruce McClary. For his long career at CED, Bruce has played a part on every major committee, giving them guidance, giving them advice, the executive committee and the others. He's been active in all of their activities involving education. And friends, there's no question but that education is shaping up as the Achilles heel of the United States in the years ahead. Relatively and absolutely, we are falling behind the other leading and the other emerging nations. Our educational system, preschool, elementary school, K through 12, and our collegiate and post-college programs are being threatened through neglect, underfunding, and we are the nation, the only nation that subscribes to the concept of clear and present danger. Our educational international standing is a clear and present danger. Thank heaven CED has a man like Bruce McClary spreading the word, sending CED's message on post-secondary education. And as a result, we're proud, for that reason and for others, to present our Distinguished Trustee Award to Bruce McLaury. Thank you.
Too much. Yes, too much. I knew the nation had many problems, but I did not think that inflation was one of them. That introduction is a clear and present danger. My sincere thanks to Dan Rose and to Mike Petro and to the co-chairs, Don Peterson and Roger Ferguson, for including me this evening among the distinguished honorees. Serving as a CED trustee lo these many decades has really been a labor of love. It's been a privilege to work with the dedicated and thoughtful business and academic executives on some of the toughest and most important policy issues facing America. And it has been a source of great personal satisfaction to believe as strongly as I do that CED's positions and advocacy, from fiscal responsibility to health care, Social Security, campaign finance reform, and on, truly represent the best of business thinking, as our letterhead proclaims. It's no accident, I think, that CED tackles some of the issues and takes positions that often are different from those of other business organizations. Our trustees are recruited and serve as individuals concerned about America's economic welfare. Whereas we do claim to bring a business perspective to the issues we tackle, we are not an advocacy group for business interests per se. And that's a very important distinction. It is both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, CED is able, sometimes with difficulty, as our trustees know, to reach consensus on key issues like tax reform, health care reform, and so forth, that would splinter other business organizations. On the other hand, CED does not begin to have the political clout that organizations such as the Business Roundtable or the Chamber of Commerce can muster. That will change. That will change, I hope. CED is not unique in facing this kind of a trade-off between influence and standing. Last week's Economist carried two very unflattering articles about corporate governance in Japan. The issue there was whether major Japanese corporations should be encouraged or even required to include unaffiliated outside directors among their board members. K-Don Ren, the organization representing large corporations, strongly opposes change, according to the article. By contrast, CED's counterpart organization, the Japan Association of Corporate Executives, on which executives serve as individuals, recently published a 2-year study that called for a revolution in Japan's boardrooms. So far, to no avail. I have to tell you, given what I've just described as a trade-off, I was surprised and greatly encouraged to read the lead headline in the October 25th Wall Street Journal. Quote, CEOs call for deficit action, executives to press Congress to embrace spending cuts and higher tax revenues. Dave Wessel's article went on to say that 80 large corporations, from Aetna to Weyerhaeuser, intend to pressure Congress to reduce the federal deficit with revenues increases as well as spending cuts. CED has been promoting that point of view for a long time, but perhaps significantly, this welcome action by CEOs was sponsored not by the usual business organizations, but by an ad hoc fix the deficit, fix the debt campaign. Who gets the credit, frankly, at this point, is far less important than that some action be taken to address the multiplicity of pressing problems that our country is facing. Political gridlock, the stepchild of contending interests narrowly defined. Gridlock is a luxury that we can no longer afford. CED does not have all the answers, but we have put forward reasoned suggestions in some of the most critical areas. I am proud to have had a role in developing some of those positions, and I am deeply honored this evening to have had this opportunity not only to thank my colleagues, but to welcome Steve Odland as CED's incoming CEO and to reaffirm my belief that reasoned positions anchored in reality and advancing the public interest will, like democracy itself, prove their worth in the long run, even if only after we have tried everything else. Thank you.